Hey folks, welcome. Here we discuss real stories by real people. Today we have the story of a man who finds out that his girlfriend is a married woman. Let's see how it goes. Story 1. I, 28 male, and my girlfriend, 26, Naya, had first met at a restaurant. She was hurrying out when she bumped into me and her coffee spilt on both of us. I lived close by, so I offered to help her wash and dry her dress. She accepted. After everything, she offered to buy me dinner in appreciation. We dined, and after that, we never stopped meeting. She had initiated the relationship, and that only made me fall deeper in love with her. I loved brazen women who were not afraid to go for what they wanted. We always met at my house based on her request, which I respected. She lived with her roommate who was always home, so her place was not an option. On our first anniversary, we dined at the restaurant we first met. During dinner, she received an emergency call that prompted her to leave early. She refused to tell me what the emergency was, she only told me she had to leave. I ordered a cab, and when it arrived, I escorted her to the car, gave her a peck, and asked her to call me later. As the car zoomed off, I turned to head back into the restaurant but stopped short when I heard a familiar voice. It was one of my old-time friends who had just returned to the state. After the pleasantries, he asked me who Naya was. I answered him and added that we were celebrating our first anniversary. He said it was unbelievable. I asked him why. He told me that she was married, that her marriage was a little over 1 year old. I refused to believe it and even called him a liar when he said he knew her husband. The next minute, he gave me his phone and asked me to see for myself. Staring back at me from the screen was a picture of her in a wedding gown, locked in an embrace with her husband. The worst part was that Naya was not even her real name. I scrolled through her photos, viewing pictures of her and her husband. I still didn't fully believe it until I saw a post she made on the morning of the day we first met. I thanked my buddy for the knowledge, collected his number, and promised to call him sometime so we could catch up. The next time I saw her was 3 days later. I asked her about her emergency, and she waved it off. She was tired, so she proposed we have an early start. I made dinner, we ate, and did everything as usual. She didn't suspect anything when she kissed me goodnight and succumbed to sleepiness. I gently took her phone out of her bag and used her right thumb to open it. I copied out her husband's number and went outside to give him a call. I told him what his wife had been doing and where she was at the moment. I made him understand that I hadn't known she was married until a friend told me. He told me he was on his way to my house. I was shocked. I had expected him to doubt me. Rather, he told me he always had a hunch that his wife was cheating on him under the guise of work. I shared my location with him and waited for his arrival. When he arrived, I asked him to wait while I got his wife. I went and woke her up. When she was sober, I asked why she had been cheating on me. She tried to deny it by shedding crocodile tears, but they ceased when I showed her their wedding picture. She started to explain it, but I told her to save the explanation for her husband. She asked me what I meant, and I told her that her husband was outside. She ran to the window to verify and nearly slumped with shock at his sight. From outside, he barked at her to come out, and she gathered her things fearfully. I escorted her out. When she got to the door, she asked me why I did this to her, and I told her that she should have thought twice before building 2 relationships on lies. She began to hit me on the chest until I reminded her that her husband was waiting. The fight left her, and she began to cry earnestly. I would have pitied her if I didn't know what she did. Her husband hefted her into his car despite her resistance, and he drove off. After about 3 months, she began to call me frequently. I wanted to be a good guy, so I picked every one of those calls. They were always about forgiveness. I kept answering her amicably until the calls got too much. The last time, I snapped at her to tell me why she wouldn't let me be, and she tearfully said she wanted us to be together. I told her to be together with her husband, and she told me he had filed for divorce. Then she began to cry harder. I told her I didn't care. I hung up and blocked her. I was done with her. OP, it sounds like Naya has a serious problem. How could she cheat on her husband in a marriage that's only a little over a year? People like her shouldn't be married because I believe they don't understand what it means to be in a committed and closed relationship. She built another version of herself for you. I'm sorry the person you loved turned out to be fake. You did the right thing by letting her husband know about what she's been doing. The husband also did the right thing by divorcing her. Stand on your ground and remain done with her. You deserve way better. Story 2. I met my wife in 2008. She was the ex of a mutual friend. Yes, they had had a sexual relationship. And I had just gotten out of a 3-year on and off again relationship, which had been one of the most difficult emotionally for reasons that I will mention later. I met her on 6/6/2008. She was 21 and lived with her mother. I was 28 and also lived at home. She had a child that was about 4 that she had with an ex in high school. Although she had a GED, she was going to school and working, so she seemed like she had a good head on her shoulders. The first day that we met, we had sex. I wasn't looking for a relationship and didn't take my dealings with her seriously after that. A few days after we met and had sex, she started telling me she loved me. In my naivety, I still didn't take any of this seriously and didn't plan to really be with her in a relationship. On 7/4/2008, she told me she was pregnant. I was shocked but oddly happy. My best friend had just had a baby with his wife. The woman with whom I was with on and off had gotten pregnant twice, but neither made it to term. In hindsight, I realized how much I wanted my own family. I would later discover my big mistake was telling my wife that. My best friend didn't believe she was pregnant. He didn't think the timeline added up, and ironically, she lived down the street from him, and he had once spotted her in a compromising position with some other guy. After 2 weeks of believing she was pregnant, I asked to see a positive pregnancy test. She very much fought me on that, and that was red flag number 4 by this point. Later that night, she called one of my friends and told him that she had miscarried. She took a pregnancy test later that week, and it was negative. She had lied. Less than a month after that, she got pregnant for real. Apparently, I had impregnated her during the time that I thought she was already pregnant. Wanting to do the right thing, I proposed to her, and next thing you know, I'm married with a child on the way less than 6 months after meeting this girl I knew almost nothing about. That would prove to be my downfall. After we married, I moved us into an apartment. A few months later, I needed to get emergency surgery, so I was in the hospital for a few days. She acted as though she wouldn't be able to stay alone in the apartment, and coincidentally, a friend of mine offered to stay at our apartment for the night, as it was on his way to a place he had to be the next day. I didn't have problems with this, but she would later tell me that he called into bed with her and tried to have sex with her. That friend is now in prison, so I can't really ask him about it, but it makes me wonder how true that story was. My other friends believe they had sex. She later quit the other job and started working at a fitness club. I caught her one night texting one of her coworkers who was saying sexual things to her. She denied any wrongdoing and again claimed that she was being sexually harassed by this man. I offered to go to her boss with her and discuss the situation, as she claimed they were in a fire escape alone together, and he forced her to sit down on his lap. Crazy, I know. The day I went to meet with her boss, we were about to go inside when suddenly she got afraid and said she wanted to talk to her boss herself without me there. I agree and wait in the car. She never told me what transpired. By this time, she had gotten pregnant again, and this was only 2010. She had dropped out of school not long after we met, and the daughter she had never moved in with us, and is still being raised by her mother. She ended up getting a job at a hospital after training as a medical assistant. In 2011, my best friend told me that she's been sexting him all week and saying that she wants to be with him. She was also telling him that she was in love with him. Crazy, I know. I confront her and she denies it at first, but he tells her that he told me everything she said and did, and then she starts going full crazy. She claims she still loves me and everything else, but apparently even her mother knew that she always had a thing for my best friend. The next day, she fake suicides by lightly cutting her wrists with a kitchen knife in front of our young children. I take her back. Did I mention she has BPD? In 2015, she actually had an affair with my best friend. This one lasts all the way to 2016. He and his wife had divorced by this time, and he started seeing her when that process started. They were sneaking around for over a year. She would take days off work to go F at his house. She bought him hundreds of dollars in gifts and neglected our own bills. There are photos and videos of them having sex. There were photos of her making out with him while our youngest was sitting next to her. She would lie and say she was out with friends, but they would spend most of the day together and would be effing in his car or hers. In 2016, she left me for him. She told me that she loves him and wants to be with him. He later dumps her to get back with his wife. I take her back. 1 month after I took her back, she got pregnant. I know she only did it to pretend she wanted to make our relationship work, but now my former friend's wife tells me that she was still trying to reach out to him just a few weeks before. I smile through what's left of our now sham marriage, as we're soon to have 3 children. By this point, we've moved back in with my parents. It's now 2017. We have a baby. Later in that year, she started to work for Uber and Lyft. She has affairs with 2 men, at least, while she's doing this, but I don't find this out until much later. It's now 2018. Video gets posted from a coworker at another job she has of her effing her boss in her car in the work parking lot. She only knew this guy for not even 2 weeks. She was in love with him too. I'm humiliated, and she makes FB posts demanding that I defend her by putting my business out there to make sure that everyone knows how flawed I am. I don't do this, but in the end, I take her back. Fast forward to 4/14/2019. I got an anonymous text from presumably a woman with pictures of my wife's snatch, and her saying to tell her to stay away from her man. I find out this time that she's been effing my 60-year-old neighbor. She denied having sex, but they only kissed. At this point, I tell her that we won't be having sex. We'll stay together for the children, but that I was done being in a fake loving marriage. She still denies any serious wrongdoing, as if kissing our neighbor wasn't a bad thing. She says she won't talk to him. Fast forward to March 2019. This time she's effing the coworker of my former best friend. She apparently effed him within 2 weeks of knowing him. They were meeting up at her job and they effed in cars. She also effed him inside her job, just like she did with my former friend. She also told this guy she wasn't in love with him. He later drops her and tells her that he doesn't have time to continue to eff her. I take her back. Fast forward to June 2019. I found the secret texting program she was using to talk to the neighbor. Turns out they were effing a lot. They never stopped talking after I found out about them, and they apparently had been seeing each other for damn near a year. She also overlapped with the guy from March. She sends him pictures, videos, told him that she loved him more than me, that she knows what true love is because of him, that she thinks about him constantly. I find out that she would F him in his house, his car, her car, our front porch, at her job. She would lie about when she got off work to go meet up with him and F. I take her back. Fast forward to now. I'm a broken man. We have an anniversary coming up soon, and she will say what she has been saying to me for 11 years. She loves me, she only wants to be with me, she never wants to cheat again. She doesn't mean it. I'm 40 years old. I don't have the energy to fight with her, divorce her, deal with her craziness. I haven't even gone into half the details of her mental psychosis. I have to accept the fact that I have a chronically unfaithful wife. She doesn't know what love is. She will lie to my face. She's called me an N-word. She has talked shit about me to her lovers and mocked me behind my back as she was having her affairs. She involved my children in her effery. I stay for my kids at this point. Our marriage is a shit show, but I want them to at least think they have a stable household. Please use this as a cautionary tale. My wife has cheated on me with at least 10 other men. Hell, 3 of the guys she cheated on me with were in the same year. That's almost 1 for every year that we've been together. I suspect there have been many more. I'm miserable all the time and depressed. I have sex with her maybe 6 times a year. I don't have friends anymore as they've all been run off by her crazy. My whole neighborhood, family, and friends know that she's a cheater. I'm now an object to be pitied. If you have more strength than me, please leave. No man or woman deserves to be put through what I've been put through. This is way too much, OP. You know deep down that you deserve a way better life than the one you're living in right now. You advise other men and women to leave, but you won't take your own advice? You need to leave, like now. You need to get your wife out of your life for good. She's been killing you slowly for the past few years with her infidelity. It's time for you to cut her out like cancer. It's time to stop taking her back. No, 40 isn't young, but it isn't old either. You can still start afresh, and don't tell me you can't because of the kids. I'm sure even they want you to be happy. So go and be happy, OP. Good luck.